I'm back. Here's part 2 of my CPT. I will be talking about the second half of the ecology unit and the rest of the space unit. Biodiversity is the amount of different life in an area and measured in species richness, which means the amount of different species there are. These natural ecosystems have benefits which are called services. These ecosystems in the botanical garden provide a cultural service because it supplies a market for tourism. We receive a very aesthetic and recreational experience as we enjoy the beauty of nature. These ecosystems also provide a service in which it purifies, helps with disease, and pollinate. Basically, it helps give flow to the order of life. Pollution can reverse these effects. It kills species, destroys ecosystems. A very bad economic loss as it erases the natural services these ecosystems give, and destroys food webs. A type of pollution is carbon emissions. It is the release of carbon into the atmosphere, which creates climate change and destroys ecosystems. Carbon emissions coming from mining and refining metals, electric power generations, oil and gas operations, and automobiles. Emissions can contain pollutants which are nitrogen and sulfur. These pollutants mix with the water vapor in the air creates acid rain. Acid rain affects soil, vegetation, lakes, rivers, and terrestrial and aquatic animals. Climate change impacts the water cycle, carbon cycle, and nitrogen cycle. Is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process in which plants convert light energy into chemical energy for producers and consumers to use. What are producers and consumers? Producers are species that can produce their own energy, which are primarily plants. Consumers are species that consume energy, which are primarily animals. Food chains and food webs are the demonstration of energy transfer between organisms. It shows what organisms eat what. Species that aren't native to an area and are causing harm, which is either ecological or economical, is called invasive species. It is usually introduced to an ecosystem by accidental transfer from a place to another. Invasive species can disrupt the ecosystem by preying on species native to that area, by carrying disease and outcompeting the species there. They get rid of the balance of an ecosystem, which is called the equilibrium, a state of abiotic and biotic features staying consistent in the ecosystem. People in the garden probably use pesticides for their plants. Pesticides are poison used to eliminate pests from destroying their plants. The photos can be related to electricity because the tall trees in the ecosystem of the photos have a great risk of getting zapped by the lightning, which is why you don't stand under trees during a thunderstorm. In houses, scientists have taken advantage of conductors. They place them at the highest point because that is where lightning is likely to strike. This is called the lightning rod. The lightning rod is then connected to a wire which is connected to a grounding rod that neutralizes the electrons. How can you relate the photo to space? That is a tricky one. Well, I took this photo in the summer of 2020 in the afternoon. In the photo, the sun shines very brightly. In space, we learned that this phenomenon is caused because of the rotation of the Earth from the Sun. As the Earth rotates west to east, which takes 24 hours to do so, a portion of the Earth is facing the Sun and a portion of the Earth isn't, which is why that photo was taken at daytime, and why the daytime is so bright. But on the other side of the Earth, like the Philippines, it is night. Very interesting. Here's a photo of the sunset. Like I stated before, the sunset is caused by the portion of Earth I was at rotating and turning away from the Sun. The moon we see at night is visible even though it isn't luminous, meaning it produces light. The reason is because of the reflections of the sun. The moon reflects it, which makes it look like it's glowing. The stars we see in the night time are luminous. The sun is a star. Stars are celestial bodies that consist of hot gases, which are mostly hydrogen and helium. There are 8 planets in our solar system. The 8 planets are divided into terrestrial and the gas giants. Terrestrial planets are planets that are rocky, hard, and the 4 planets closest to the sun, which are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The gas giants are Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. The term for these planets are gas giants because they are composed of gases like hydrogen and helium. The planets are celestial objects. What are celestial objects? Celestial objects are any object in space. Satellites are celestial objects that travel around the planets. We use artificial satellites for many purposes like gathering information across the world. The moon is a natural satellite and is non-luminous, as it travels across the Earth. What happens if satellites collide? When they collide, it would cause space debris. The solar system is part of the universe. The universe is a collection of celestial objects like galaxies, stars, and planets. Our galaxy is the Milky Way galaxy, which contains 200 billion stars, which include our sun. Our sun is constructed on the inside with its core being the hottest, then the radiative zone and the convection zone. The outside layers consist of the photosphere, which is the layer that emits heat and light. The chromosphere is the layer just above that, and the corona is the outer layer of the sun, which contains solar prominence. It is ejections of gas that moves through the corona. The moon is non-luminous, but how are we able to see the moon? The reason is because the bright light the sun emits gets reflected on the moon. It isn't the light that the moon produces. Astronauts have created their own unit of measure because distance in space is so great, which is called astronomical units. Planets orbit the sun and is not floating away from the sun because it is attracted to the gravitational pull the sun gives, which is why we have gravity. It takes us Earth dwellers 365 days to orbit the sun, which is, as we know, are called years. The photo can relate to chemistry because without the sun here, we wouldn't be able to live because photosynthesis wouldn't cease to exist, and photosynthesis is vital for life on Earth. I can relate this to electricity because we now have electric technology which converts the UV rays of the sun into electricity we can use, called solar panels. Thank you for listening.